Testing. Hello, everybody. My name is Nicholas Conti. I'm on the employer brand team at Semrush. We thought we'd do a really cool event for you featuring 3 amazing women in tech out of many countless that we know. Today featuring 3 experts in particular. We have Matea Kittle starting out. She is our ORM team lead, and she has a lot of great things to say. Then we have Abby Curtis, who is our external speaker from breastcancer.org, who also has a lot of great things to say. And then we have our internal sales manager, Ali Goulet, who, once again, has a lot of great things to say. I know that's probably not very specific, but I'll let them take it away. I don't want to take away any of the thunder from them. So, Matea, you want to get started when you're ready?
Sure thing.
All right.
You can hear me? Sounds good? All right. Wonderful. Well, hi, everyone. Like Nick said, my name is Matea Kittle. I'm the online reputation and community team lead here at Semrush. Just came up on my 3-year anniversary here, which is really exciting, and have grown a lot throughout this team and helping to grow our social and community program. Today, I'm going to talk about just one area of what our team covers, and we're going to be navigating some negativity together. I would be doing myself a disservice as an ORM professional if I didn't have a disclaimer here that while I am a Semrush employee, these thoughts here are my own research, put them all together as well, so this isn't a direct representative of the brand and what we think, it's all of myself. So what does the online reputation and community team actually do? That's a great question. We have 3 main buckets that we separated into. We do social media monitoring. So every month we're processing between 10 and 15,000 mentions from our social media. This can include people tagging us in posts at Semrush, people talking about Semrush online, they're commenting on our posts, replying to us. Those are all coming in through our feed. And we have a daily shift coverage of 12 hours. So from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., our team is monitoring all of this and, of course, catching up on the backlog the following day. We can have posts and comments ranging from engaging, and we have people that are laughing at us, saying how great we are. They're asking questions about Semrush or their account. And maybe we have some negative and just neutral mentions there as well. The second bucket here is internal risk support. This is a lot of the ORM portion of what our team does. So whenever we have teams that are maybe activating an experiment that are going to affect some of our users, or we have some changes coming up to maybe the layout or pricing, then we help teams with their internal communications. We're reviewing them for any ORM risks and helping craft FAQs for public-facing teams. And then lastly, we also handle some community projects. Community is quite a broad word across the digital marketing landscape, but for us, this includes our review platform management and generating reviews across G2 and Trustpilot, Capterra. We also manage our Reddit community growth. We have a traffic think tank Slack community that we manage, an employee advocacy program, and a customer ambassador program that's coming soon. All that is managed by my phenomenal team here. We have myself as a team lead, Lizzie, Sasha, Kyle, and Nancy, and we are from all over the world. So as you can see, though we are on the social and community team, not everything that we do is all social and community and fun. So just to read the room here, who all has left a negative comment before? Guilty. Okay, yes. Who here has left a negative review before? Probably. Yes. Most of you. Did you feel better after you did? Sometimes. Was your problem solved if you were posting about an issue? Well, hopefully that was most of you. So why does it actually feel good to leave something negative online? To put it simply, we're just human. But what that actually means is there is research that shows that there are some psychology, some social aspects, and then gender that influence how we rate products, leave reviews, and just how we talk online. So psychologically, let's look at what that is. The negativity bias is that we are more likely to talk about a negative experience that we had rather than a positive one, which translates to online conversations as well. Sometimes it just feels good, and we want to vent our frustrations and have people looking at how the experience that we went through. Also can feel like we have a sense of justice whenever we are warning somebody about an experience that we had so that they hopefully don't have a similar one. And then also, if emotional contagion is spreading online, people are already talking negatively about your brand, more people are going to be negative as well when talking about it. And when we're behind screens, it can be anonymous, especially on platforms like Reddit, where people can have no correlation to who you are, and we feel a little bit more bold to talk about what we think. There are social and cultural predispositions as well to leaving negativity. When we want to seek for validation, we want other people to back us up. We want to feel supported, like, hey, look at what I went through, and have somebody that can say, yeah, I agree with you, and feel the same way. Similar to the emotional contagion, there's a tribal mentality. If someone's already talking negatively about a brand in particular or about you, then people are going to be more likely to leave additional comments, add in on the conversations, because that feels like the majority. And then even on the other half, you could have people that maybe don't agree with that. They're going to be less likely to engage because they're not with the majority. There's also a seek for attention and for additional engagement. Oftentimes when we are posting controversial content, it has a lot more comments. There's a lot more responses, and people want to be able to get that for their social channels. There are some positive ways that you can use negativity too. There are some activist movements that are using negativity and posting online in order to drive some sort of change and try to get some work done. Also, could just be misinformation. Maybe some people don't have complete knowledge of a situation, and then they're too quick to judge. It's actually something that's wrong. And then situationally too, we can be predisposed as to why we want to leave negativity. I have an unresolved issue. I talked to customer support. I talked to sales. Something didn't happen. You're not listening to me. I haven't heard from anybody. I'm going to go post online to see if I can escalate and actually get an answer to my question. Maybe I'm having a really bad day, and this was just the absolute icing on the cake. I'm going to go online, misplace that frustration onto someone like me in ORM that's handling all of that. Also, if you haven't noticed, maybe on your Instagram or Twitter or now X feed, sometimes you're getting those more controversial posts. Usually they typically align with you and your views, but that's because the algorithm tends to amplify the posts that are driving a lot of engagement, even if it's negative. And some people are just trolls. They find it fun, they're bored, and want to go online and spark something. So those were the psychological and social predispositions, but I also mentioned that research showed that gender was one of them as well. There was a controlled study that analyzed 1.2 billion reviews, and women gave higher ratings than men across multiple platforms. This wasn't because they had a better experience, it's because they felt that there was going to be some type of judgment in society. Those societal norms caused them to refrain from leaving more negative reviews. And researchers were actually surprised by this. There was a mini survey that they held prior to launching the full study, and they said, we have to admit that the fact that women are on average consistently more positive on such a gigantic scale was surprising. We asked family, colleagues, students, and anecdotally, when they had to guess, women usually got it wrong, and women thought that women were generally more negative. And this may be an interesting misconception, women thinking they are themselves more negative when they are actually more positive. But why in the world would women think this? Well, it's just kind of how we grew up. We grew up socialized into gender-specific behaviors. Now, this can vary across your country, state, religion, how you were raised. But again, this is personal experience and stereotypes a lot of us consider and have experienced. Girls are often encouraged to be more expressive, be nurturing. And then boys are taught kind of the opposite. Hide your emotions. You shouldn't cry. Why are you sad about this? And to be more independent. And of course, growing up, then that's going to follow us into adulthood as well. So then, here in adulthood, enter the challenge of being a woman that's working in online reputation management. So let's back up for just a second. We now understand the why. Why are people leaving negative reviews? We're going to look briefly now at the what. What does that mean? What is negativity? What is ORM? And then we'll touch quickly, too, on the how. How are we handling all of that in ORM? So what is ORM? Online reputation management. This is tracking, analyzing, and responding to public perception to protect a brand's credibility. That is the actual definition if you're going to look it up. But just to briefly put how we approach it at Semrush, it's responding to negativity on social and review platforms. It's kind of what I was touching on too when I said that that's part of one of our main roles here is doing the social listening. It's crisis prevention and handling. No one wants a crisis to happen, but it's always going to be possible and you need to be prepared if and when that happens. What are we going to be doing to address it? Then also we are building the trust and reputation from the company. If users are calling us out, they're trying to talk to us and get something resolved, we want to make sure that they get their answers there and that they can continue to trust our brand. And then also on the proactive side is working with people online, and when they're engaging with us, saying how much they love our product or how much they really enjoy interacting with our social teams, that's then encouraging that positive brand advocacy and is more likely to be reciprocated. So today we're going to focus on just one portion here, and that's responding to the negativity. Some of the types of negativity that we see most often: general complaints, product complaints, I don't understand your pricing, I'm having a problem with this tool, I haven't heard back from CS. Constructive criticism, which is the only good one that I love to get, because we can actually do something with that. We can take that back to the product teams and share, this is what our users want from this, and then make something out of it. Trolling, of course, you have people that are just online and love to hear themselves talk. And then, as I mentioned earlier, too, misinformation. So some general examples. You have probably seen this one here on the left. This is a good example of misinformation. We have somebody who is claiming that they had the wrong letters, they totally screwed up their order on Amazon, when you can clearly see the A and the D are mixed up, and they need to replace those. So negative review, easily fixed. Most recently, we actually came across a case with Duolingo, and their Reddit is run by some Duolingo users. Their customer support team and social teams don't handle the subreddit, but it turned into a support channel and absolutely blew up, demanding for people to sign a petition. Quite a really interesting, and it blew up post on Reddit. And then some quick examples here from Twitter. Wendy, your workers suck, your ice cream machine is broken, of course, didn't like the service, don't like it, they don't know how to do marketing. So in a nutshell, here's how we find and then process all of those mentions. Social listening, what you need is a tool, a place where you're gathering all of your mentions into one place, tools like Sprout Social and Loomly. And then you need to identify a workflow. And whenever you're loading your mentions, you could have 5, you could have 20, you could have 200. It depends on when and where you are accessing your tool. But you need to focus when you first load Sprout is to, for example, is to scan for that negativity, and then you need to prioritize those mentions. The more practice you get, the more easily you're able to identify those and then continue to work with that. Internally, we actually have an SLA, so about every 20 to 30 minutes, we're going into our social listening tool to try to find those negativity or those negative posts in order to process them. And then one of my best tips here too is to open the post natively. Whenever you're looking at it through a tool like Sprout Social or Loomly, you're kind of missing a little bit of the context and the feel. So I recommend, to get the full picture, open that post in LinkedIn, open it on Twitter. What are the replies like? Are people engaging? Has it actually blown up in the first 10 to 15 minutes? Do we know this person? So it's really important to get the full picture. But now you found that negativity, and here's what you need to do with it. You have to differentiate. There's a big difference between constructive criticism, someone that's misinformed, or somebody that's having an issue with their account or just trolling. So understand what the user is saying and get the sentiment of how they feel as well. Then you need to determine what is required for an answer. Who do I need to talk to? Do I need information about their account? Do I have enough information in order to respond to them? Have we seen a case like this before? And have we responded to something similar? I have an asterisk here because there are some pro tips that go along with that. When I mention, have I seen something like this before? I highly recommend storing and tracking your negative mentions somewhere, not only for historical trends and data, but also to be able to calculate that response time. And then we report on this every month to our leadership and then team-wide to see how we're performing. And then frequently asked questions, you can create a response matrix somewhere and continue to keep this updated. In that response matrix, you can have information about why your answer is what it is, some examples of past cases, and then a suggested response that you will never copy and paste, hopefully, because we're going to personalize every response, but it gives you a great start and can help take away some time. And then, now that you've determined all of that, you're ready to craft your response. Most of the time, there are some situations that is to be determined by your team whether it requires a response or not. Otherwise, when we're crafting that response, we need to lead with empathy. You need to acknowledge the situation with transparency and then explain the resolution, the next step. And these processes are going to help you navigate some of the challenges are when working in ORM and working with a lot of negativity, is that emotional toll and burnout. I'm combining words. It can be challenging when you're hearing negativity all the time about a brand, maybe the company that you work for, there are some solutions here to set clear boundaries. Within our monitoring shift between 5 a.m. and 5 p.m., we have shifts. So people are working 4 to 6 hours, and we have contractors that are helping us to filter through all of these mentions and making sure that we're addressing the ones needed. And then creating the templated responses can help detract from feeling like it's yourself and you're having an emotional attack. And then crisis mode and escalations. Like I said, no one wants to have a crisis, but you always have to be ready. It's not an if, it's a when. So making sure that you have a crisis response framework that can be activated whenever it's identified. And also what it means and when you're ready to activate a crisis and what that process is to determine when you need to activate that process. And then develop an internal support system. You're probably not going to do this alone. Whenever you hit crisis mode, you're likely going to be collaborating across teams with PR, legal, customer support, and or product. So just a fake example here of what it could look like when you're handling some negativity. So we have Kittle here at Not Real. Absolutely terrible service from Not Really Amazon. I'm so confused using the app. No one's helping me. I waited days for a response and still nothing. You're useless. So here, again, we identified it. We're figuring out, okay, what do I need to respond? What's important here? And making sure that we have a resolution at the end. So, hey, Kittle, I'm sorry to hear this. Would you mind sending us a DM with more details? We can take a closer look. Our support team typically responds within 24 hours, though, of course, it may take longer on weekends or holidays. In the meantime, we have some how-to guides and FAQs on our website. Thanks in advance. So that is replying to negative social mentions in its simplest form. But again, we could have an entire conversation about that. So then why is it challenging to work in ORM as a woman, or why do people think that it is? Well, there is an unsurprising lack of research around this topic, and in particular in this industry. So again, talking about my experience and the stereotypes that we've gone through. Women are seen as too emotional to handle high pressure situations. Women are too empathetic in order to handle negativity properly, which ultimately is just incorrect. Women are not too anything. This is implying that we have an excess of emotions or that we're expressing empathy too often. What we should be talking about are the pros of being naturally emotional beings. You remember this slide. You've seen it, right? We found the negativity. There was a little nutshell in here, leading with empathy. And as women in particular, right, this is a strength. We're too empathetic, right? So what else do we have that's a strength that comes from that? And that's going to be emotional intelligence. And this is a major, major skill when working in online reputation. This means you can read the virtual room. What's the sentiment? How do they feel about us? What are they actually saying? And then taking it and de-escalating it. You're turning a negative experience into something positive and constructive and giving them a resolution. And then also knowing when and how to respond. And you can do all of that likely better than others. So women in ORM are not reacting emotionally, believe it or not. What we are doing, though, is we're using that emotional intelligence in order to guide our decision making and using that in combination with empathy to our advantage. Because ORM isn't about you, it's not about Matea, it's not about Abby, it's about protecting that brand. And strong ORM professionals are succeeding because of the strategy and the logic, not because we're suppressing emotions. So trust yourself, use your emotional toolkit as a tool, because that's exactly what it is. Thank you. Any questions?
Amazing, Matea. And just to let everybody in the room and the chat know, we're going to take some questions for a Q&A for Matea. So if anybody in the room has a question, you can raise your hand. I'll bring the mic over to you. You can introduce yourself and do a little question. You won't be on camera, so don't worry. And also, same goes for people online. If you want to field some questions in the next minute or so, you got plenty of time. Matea, I have a question.
Sure.
So you mentioned that obviously handling negativity in general is a huge part of ORM, right? So what would you say is one of the most memorable situations where you were dealing with negativity and tried to separate it from work and personal? Does that question make sense?
It does make sense. And the first part of your question made me think of when we used to have a private Facebook group for paid Semrush users. And it was my personal account. It was coming from Matea as a representative of the Semrush brand. So that became a little bit more challenging to separate myself from the brand. But you also saw in the example when responding to negativity that we sign off our names. So even whenever we are responding from Semrush, we're saying, oh, it's from Matea, it's from Kyle, or from Nancy, so that we can take a little bit more of that de-escalation, like, hey, you're not yelling at the brand. It's not going all the way up to Bill. It's coming to us, and we're the ones that are managing this. So it's really important to show them that this is coming from a person and that we want to help them and want to help solve the problem that they're talking about.
All right, great answer. Thank you.
Yeah,
very insightful. Anybody have any questions in the room? Anybody? I broke the ice for you, so I hope it made it a little bit easier. There's no pressure, though. Oh, sure. We have Patty coming up here. Here you go. You talk right to the microphone.
At what point in your career did you choose this path? Did you just like wake up one day and say, I just want to deal with negative comments all day, every day?
Well, I started this 3 years ago when I joined Semrush, but growing up, I was the person that my friends came to that were like, please help me reply to this. Like, what am I supposed to say? And I would sit there and try to help them come up with, maybe it was a conversation or a response to someone at work. Maybe it was a response to a guy they were talking to. Maybe it was something they were trying to pitch to their parents that they wanted to go to Europe. So I would be the one that was sitting there and helping them craft those conversations and their replies. And now that's what I do for my job. So kind of came full circle. And yeah, I actually just started mainly when working here at Semrush. Yeah, thanks.
All right, I'm just going to check the chat really quick for some questions. Matea, you're getting so much love from the commenters. Just want to let you know.
Thanks.
And Abby White in particular said, yay, go best friend. So just wanted
Thanks,
to tell
Abby.
you that. And then, okay, and then we have a question here. Okay, let me just read it really quick. Okay. Yes. So from Aquaria2291, she asked, do you have any recommendations or techniques to help shield ourselves or manage the impact of dealing with so much negativity? I often worry about the latent effects of ingesting this stuff.
100%. I'm working on that as well. I think it's going to be an ongoing practice, and being able to separate yourself and just tell yourself, this is not about me. They're not attacking Matea. They are misplacing their frustration. And a lot of times it's easy for me to put myself in the user's shoes and say, I would probably be upset about that as well. And that's how I'm going to reply. And that's how we're leading with empathy, is that I would probably feel the same way, and recognizing that it's not about you and telling yourself that. And then also personalizing your response and trying to give that human touch is going to help them a lot then to turn from being somebody who's upset and negative, even potentially back into an advocate. And then just taking a break. Sometimes what you need to is walk away. We also have a channel internally for my entire team where we're frustrated and we're going to share a response and be like, what are they even saying? Like, what does this person want from us? And that feels good. That's cathartic in itself for us to have somebody that's that can relate to us without going public. We air our frustrations, and then we have a professional response ready publicly.
All right, amazing answer. And we have another question coming in from a live streamer, but I do want to just say we have time for 2 more questions. So I'm going to take one from our comments and then one more from the room if anybody in here has any questions or anything to ask Matea, anything that kind of sparked any interest. Yeah? All right. Okay.
We'll get through it.
Hi, I'm Camilla. I'm a solutions engineer here, and I wanted to ask, since like my team deals a lot with AI and how that's expanding into everything that goes on online, and I know that I don't know how it works in ORM, but I know that you mentioned that a human touch is always important. So do you guys lean on AI for any automation, or is it that human touch is always going to exist?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're working on using AI to automate some internal processes, and I'm excited about that in order to free up a lot of our team's time. When it comes to responding to users, I can be quite wordy. So how I leverage AI is to help me make things more concise. Sometimes I'll find a similar case where we are storing all of our historic data, and I maybe don't like the tone quite right. It doesn't fit this situation. So I'll just talk to ChatGPT and I'll use it as a resource as if, hey, this is the situation, help me reply. The example that I put, also I was helping with ChatGPT because I was like, give me an example of negativity. I didn't want to use one that came directly from us. So I use it to help optimize responses, especially on Twitter when you're limited with the number of letters that you can use. Yeah, and otherwise, I would say we just use it to make sure that we're speaking with clarity and being as concise as possible. It's also interesting to see AI responses and see AI comments coming through because people are using that to respond to our LinkedIn or to message stuff on Twitter. So it's kind of obvious too, but we still interact with those through our normal processes. Yeah.
All right, and we have one more question from a viewer. Emily R. says, love the talk. Question, when do you decide to end the conversation with a negative reviewer? In other words, at what point do you call it and move on knowing you won't satisfy them?
That is a great question. And in SEO, we say it depends. It is going to be a case-by-case basis. Typically, what we try to do in best practice is to have a resolution there at the end and to have a final say. We have in situations, in particular in DMs, where people are trying to use us as customer support, and we have done everything we can. So it's just continuing to communicate with them. You kind of almost need to have a final statement of like, we understand where you are, here's what we've done, here's where the case stands now, here's what we're gonna do next, and here's who you can talk to and where you need to take it. Like just kind of making sure that they have all the information that they need in order to solve the problem. But yeah, otherwise it does kind of depend. We do like to make sure that if we recognize in one of the comments or replies that their original situation isn't solved, we'll continue responding. Otherwise, we want to try to have the final say, thanks for escalating this to us, we appreciate it. If you ever need anything, you can reach out, customer support, DM, etc.
All right, amazing. Yeah. And that is it for our Q&A for Matea. So everybody, please give it up for Matea.
Thank you.
And we're just going to mute the stream for just a second while we change over to our next speaker, Abby. All right, everybody, welcome back. Next up, we're welcoming our guest speaker, Abby Curtis. So everybody, please give it up for Abby.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I'm talking about two topics that are very near and dear to my heart. And the first is becoming a stronger content SEO in light of all the challenges we're facing lately. And the second is the continuing challenges that women are facing in marketing and in the greater workplace. A little bit about me. I've been in digital marketing for about a decade. I've been specializing in SEO since about 2018. And for the last 2 years, I've been the SEO content strategist at breastcancer.org. I have experience in agencies and nonprofits, and I've also been freelancing for my entire career. Outside of work, I'm a certified personal trainer, and I'm very, very passionate about health education and social justice. So search marketers are facing a lot of challenges right now. As we know, organic search has always been ever-changing, but it feels like the changes lately are making major waves, and the waves just keep on coming. So raise your hand if you think about or track organic search traffic in your work. Anybody? Okay. And keep your hand raised if you've seen it take a hit since the introduction of AI overviews and the expansion of LLMs like Gemini and ChatGPT. Okay. So you know where I'm coming from when I say it's been a little bit of a wild ride lately. So what do we do about that? As SEOs, we need to adapt. We need to lean into what we already know, and we need to learn new things. And as that happens, our roles will naturally evolve. So how do we do that? When I talk about learning and leaning, there's so much that we already know, but so much that we can still learn. So the first thing I think is really important in the learning process is to collaborate, not just with your teammates, but with other teams that you historically have not had the opportunity to do so. So talking to social, talking to email marketing, talking to sales, investigating deep learning opportunities like user testing and surveys, talking to the development team about A/B testing. What more can you do together to align your strategy to become more holistic and make sure that content distribution doesn't end at SEO? And with distribution in mind, you need to explore untapped channels. Find out where your users are, where your target audience is, that your messaging is not, and explore how you can get there. Also, for a more formal education opportunity, your organization should at a minimum provide a professional development budget. Even better if they have continuing education requirements or opportunities, so please don't pass up that opportunity. Take advantage of that. And when I say lean into what you already know, user experience has always been a cornerstone of SEO. We've always been thinking about creating an excellent user experience with every piece of content we develop. But now more than ever, it's so important to create content for human beings that's accessible, inclusive, comprehensive, and easy to understand. You also want to think about conversion rate optimization. I know it's appealing to get someone to come to your site and get that organic search traffic. That's a win by itself. But what we're really trying to do is drive conversions. So if it's not already in your repertoire, I want you to think about exploring conversion rate optimization, looking into the user psychology behind these conversion decisions, and make sure that you're thinking about that as you develop your content. And finally, refine your strategy. I know it's easy to fall into the checklist, SEO best practices, keyword research type of habit, but we need to be thinking bigger picture and we need to be thinking longer term. I know it seems like I'm asking you to do a lot, and I'm also mindful that women in marketing and generally in the workplace are facing a lot of challenges, and there are 4 that I want to discuss specifically today. The first is a phenomenon called the broken rung. So in 2018, for every 100 men that received their first promotion to a manager position, let me check the number, only 79 women were promoted. And in 2024, just 81 women were. So we're not seeing a lot of progress there. The second is the pay gap, something that's been around since women started working, and you'd think it would be a lot more narrow these days. But Marketing Week's 2024 survey of 3,000 brand-side marketers revealed that women are making 16% less than their male peers on average. The third is discrimination. So you might have thought that after 2020, there was this huge surge of DEI initiatives within companies. Unfortunately, 2 things have happened. Commitment to those initiatives have been waning in the years since, and employee buy-in was not where it needed to be. So the trainings were occurring, but behavior change was not. And finally, balance. I think anyone in marketing has seen a job description that requires you to be an expert in every channel and also do administrative tasks and also do it with a smile. We know that's not really realistic, but we also carry that expectation to do it all into our personal lives as well. So we're data people in this room, so let's look at some data. There was a very interesting survey done by McKinsey and leanin.org, and there were 281 participating organizations. There were tens of thousands of participants, and what really was revealed through this research is that women remain underrepresented at every stage of the corporate pipeline. As you can see here, we're very outnumbered, but it's not just in the C-suite. Women remain less likely to be hired into entry-level roles, and then as we discussed with the broken rung phenomenon, we're also less likely to be promoted to our first manager position. I also want to talk about microaggressions. So you've probably either experienced one firsthand or observed it in the workplace, and unfortunately in the last 5 years, things have not been getting much better. The 3 I've highlighted here are competency-based microaggressions. So the same amount of women reported in 2024 that they had their judgment questioned, or were mistaken for an employee of a lower level as they were 5 years ago. The only competency-based microaggression that they surveyed that has improved is being interrupted or spoken over, and that's actually improved for men and women in the workplace. But competency-based microaggressions aren't the only slights that we're seeing. We're also seeing things that are rooted in sexism, homophobia, and other things like that. So LGBTQ women and women with disabilities were more likely to report having experienced microaggressions in the workplace, and they feel most uncomfortable discussing their personal lives at work. Black women are most likely to report that their peers express surprise over their language skills or abilities. Latinas are most likely to report that they felt judged by the way they spoke or their accent. And then Black and Asian women are most likely to be mistaken for another employee of the same race or ethnicity. Another thing that concerns me is that senior level men, as we can see highly outnumber us, are the most optimistic about this situation and the least aware of the barriers that women are facing. 9 in 10 senior level men that were surveyed said that they thought that progress was happening and things were going really well, where just 6 in 10 senior level women agreed. So when we think about progress, with this broken rung phenomenon, we have not made a lot of progress. And if we continue at this current pace, it would take 48 years for women to reach true parity in senior leadership. That means that it would accurately reflect their population in the United States. So that's a very scary thought that we would have to wait until 2072 if we maintain this current pace. You're also probably all aware of the DEI rollbacks that have been happening with the current administration. It's my belief that these DEI rollbacks are the result of the misconception that DEI somehow favors people of marginalized communities. Whereas the reality is, as Caroline Sumlin put it, DEI has only ever existed to ensure that highly qualified individuals from marginalized communities no longer face the discriminatory barriers that have historically excluded them. But what we're dealing with right now is the federal policy of recognizing only 2 genders, ceasing virtually all DEI-related activities in the federal workforce, and rescinding previous administration's executive orders, including the one that required federal contractors to implement affirmative action programs. And the consequences can be both short-term and long-term. And the consequences that concern me the most is that there will be a lack of progress for women, particularly women of color, in the workplace. There will be fewer opportunities for them to move into leadership positions, and basically things will just kind of remain the same. So I know that's kind of a bummer, but we're not helpless. There's so much that we can do, both as individuals and as organizations. So as individuals, we can join or start employee resource groups or DEI councils to make our values known within our organizations. We can write to local representatives, corporate leaders, and workplace decision makers and plead with them to continue the DEI initiatives. If you are a leader in your organization, you can advocate to keep DEI initiatives in place. You can amplify marginalized voices, and you can support small, local, women-owned businesses, both in and outside of work. And then as companies, they need to maintain or even ramp up progress on DEI training and initiatives. They also need to examine their hiring and promotion processes to identify any areas of biases or discrimination. They need to invest more resources in preparing women for leadership roles. And they need to modernize benefits packages because, like we talked about, women aren't achieving that balance that they deserve. So talking about parental leave and support, more flexible working hours, better vacation, things like that. So there is a lot that we can do, again, both as individuals and as organizations, to keep progress going and to hopefully reach that true parity much sooner than 48 years. Thank you.
Give it up for Abby, everybody. And once again, we're going to be doing a Q&A. So anybody listening online that wants to ask a question, awesome. Anybody in the room that wants to ask a question, just raise their hand. I'll bring the mic over. Well, I guess we'll just wait for questions to field in, yeah?
Do you have a question there?
Let me think. So I guess over the course of your career, how have you been able to I guess, keep up the optimism that things will improve for women in general, or just kind of keep trucking forward? Like, what's your motivation that keeps you going?
I think one thing I've always relied on is just advocating for myself and my colleagues. I think that's the easiest way to just make our values known. And I think a great example that comes to mind, one of my mentors, I found out that we had the same title, did the same work, but they made more money than me. And it was a conversation that our employer was not thrilled about, but it was it was an opportunity for me to advocate for myself for some more equity in that way. So just things like that, standing up for yourself, it's very scary, to be honest, especially in a professional setting, but I think honesty goes a very long way.
I love that answer. And I feel like everybody can benefit from that, despite gender or anything like that. I think standing up for yourself is very important in settings
Absolutely.
like this. Let me see. I don't think. Oh, who do we have? Okay. Nastia, we have a question. If you want to introduce yourself.
I'm just interested. Did you ever face the situation of discrimination on your workplace, wherever?
Many times. SEO is definitely a male-dominated field, and many of the organizations I worked at prior to joining breastcancer.org, I was surrounded by male supervisors, and there were many situations in which I felt like my judgment was being doubted just because I was a young woman in the industry, whether it was because of my, novice status in the industry at that time. I found it very interesting, the data I shared about the being interrupted or spoken over has decreased over the last several years, because that's something that used to happen to me quite a bit. And it's something that is really discouraging in a professional setting or in a personal setting. Really, no one wants to be interrupted or spoken over. As a white woman, I haven't experienced many microaggressions regarding my race, ethnicity, things like that, but I have felt that there have been subtle slights against me just because I'm a woman. Yeah.
All right, and we have a question from an Emily R. on the live stream. So, Abby, what is your best advice for a more introverted female professional trying to speak up on video calls with large group and people sometimes accidentally talk over each other?
That is really difficult. I think we're all still trying to transition to meetings where we're not all together and we can't read those body language cues that someone's ready to speak. I think in certain organizations, they do utilize the hand raise, and I think it feels a little silly at first, but I do think it's super useful, and it makes sure that you're not continuously passed over. I think one thing to note is that most of the time when you're being spoken over on a Zoom call, it's probably not intentional. So don't feel discouraged because you aren't getting heard, but make sure that you make it known. You can make it known in the chat if you don't want to keep saying, so you can put it in the chat, hey, if we have a minute, I would love to discuss ABC. Again, the hand raise feature, but you don't have to go completely out of your comfort zone, but make sure that you do advocate for yourself, because the way Zoom meetings go is all of a sudden the topic will be closed and you'll move on to the next, and everything you have to say adds value to the conversation. So definitely make it known that you have something to say.
Thank you, Emilio, for the question, and thank you, Abby, for the amazing answer. And we have another question from our very own Matea here.
Yeah, hi, it's Matea. I'm curious what you would say or recommend to somebody, a young female who maybe just graduated from college, who is trying to get into this field, and how they can be such a powerhouse like you and, make their position known in the company.
That's a great question. I think one of the most valuable things for me early in my career was to have a mentor, and that can be formal or informal. Luckily, I think women in marketing like to look out for one another, and we like to make friends and we like to make connections. And as I spoke about in my talk, collaborating with other teams is really important. But if you can find someone that's doing work that either you're doing now or would like to do in the future, and you can ask, hey, would you be willing to sit and have coffee with me and kind of tell me about your career path and how you got where you are now? And usually people love talking about themselves. So I wouldn't say that it would be, a definite no from most people. But having mentors throughout my career has been extremely valuable, and just having someone to bounce ideas off of, that it doesn't feel high stakes because it's not my boss. or a client. It's just another person that maybe has more knowledge and experience than I do, but I look up to them. I'm inspired by them. So yeah, just look for your people, and usually they'll want to help.
That is great advice. Thank you. And we have one more. We have time for one more question. If anybody else in the room has anything they want to ask, anybody online, Bill.
Hey, Abby. Thanks. I'm Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
You talked about the training basically being all the ramped up training in the 20 teens that really didn't, at the end of the day, didn't land, right? Or it landed but didn't stick.
Right.
So how do you think, as companies continue to invest in that and training, the new generation kind of in the workforce, what has to change from what we tried 10 years ago that really didn't work?
That's a great question. I think a lot of the more formal trainings that were put in place in around 2020, 2021 were highly structured. They resembled the old school HR training videos of the 90s that every answer was really obvious, but we just have to talk about it anyway, that kind of thing. I think having a more informal training experience that extends from all of us together in a room talking about this topic to here's some resources that you could read either during work time or after work time to really explore the nuance of DEI so that people get a more firm understanding of what it is and why we do it. Because I think, like I mentioned, there's this misconception that DEI means there's going to be some favoritism, or that a white man will miss out on an opportunity because a black woman applied for the same job, which is not the case. So I think really just diving into the details, the nitty-gritty, is more important than just the high level, we're doing this, you need to be aware of this kind of thing. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Abby. And also, Abby, that was our last question, but you're getting a lot of love from the chat. Just so you know, you have a Justine Lamano saying, speaking of mentors, Abby is my mentor, and she is incredible. Case in point, her presenting today and providing great insights. Smiley face. Everybody, give it up for Abby. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just a note for the live streamers, we're just going to mute really quick while we switch over to our final speaker. All right, welcome back, everybody. We have our final speaker, Ali Goulet, sorry. Lots of four-letter names. Ali, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Hello, everyone. First, thank you to our first two speakers, Matea and Abby. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to talk to you today more about my sales career, winning in sales, and in leadership. So first, I'll start a little bit about me. My name is Ali. I lead our small business team here at Semrush on the US side. Professionally, I've been in SaaS sales for about 10 years, which feels crazy to say, and I started my sales career in the automotive industry. So if you're ever buying a car, give me a call. I can help you out. And then personally, I am super passionate about coaching and development, advocating for others, and in my free time, do pro bono coaching through a Boston-based nonprofit called Pay Forward Coaching. It's one of my absolute favorite things to do. Recently got married to my amazing, incredible husband, Casey, and I love to cook. I've been known to run and teach dumpling making classes, and I love my puppy Pickles. So the first topic I want to discuss is a mindset shift and owning your space. And quite honestly, a lot of things that I'll cover today aren't specific to sales. I think everyone can benefit from building confidence, being clear on your point of view, and understanding what you want and really going for it. So first is confidence is a skill. I think myself, along with other women, and probably just people in general, the imposter syndrome, the pressures that you put on yourself, the doubts that you have, the internal talk that you have can honestly really limit you, because the way that you think about yourself is oftentimes the way that other people think about you too, because you put that out there. Really building your confidence, and however you do that, if it's a sticky note on your mirror, or if it's a reminder that you have for yourself every day or every week, just being really in touch with how awesome you are, reminding yourself of that, and surrounding yourself with people, both professionally and personally, who can build you up and remind you of those things is really, really important. Ownership over your actions and outcomes. I think it's really easy to feel that you are being successful in spite of something instead of being successful because of something. And I really encourage you to shift your mindset to owning, here's how I show up every day. I can't control everything in terms of outcomes, but what I can do is own my mindset, be positive, show up every day the way that I want to be perceived and the way that I know myself to be, and just be your authentic self every single day. And reframing your industry. Being a woman in sales, it's an inherently male-dominated place to be. I love being in sales. I think surrounding myself with people who are high energy, have high expectations, really just fuels me and drives me. And again, reframing, not saying I have to prove something or be successful in spite of something, and instead saying, I am different. I might be the only face in the room that looks like this, and that's amazing. I have the opportunity to bring people up with me, advocate, bring a different point of view, a different background, and know that I'm going to be appreciated for that. Again, you can't control others, you can't control who else is in the room, but you can control your narrative and how you feel about yourself, and using your opportunity and your voice to bring other people up with you. And lastly, it's advocacy. More than going into a negotiation for promotion or more money, is truly advocating for others and bringing other people with you is one of your most powerful tools. As we were just hearing from our last speaker, advocacy is really important. There's a lot of gaps and opportunities for us all to be more supportive of each other. And for me, using my voice and my, my platform and my role to give a voice to those that maybe don't have them, and encourage people to grow in their confidence, grow in their skill set, and in their career, is something that is a huge privilege to me. And I encourage probably a lot of the people in this room are already doing that, but really understand that while you just feel like yourself and maybe you're not always super confident when you have to bring, there's so many other people looking at you, counting on you, and you can use your voice even in really small ways to help bring people with you in your success and theirs. Next is tactical strategies for success. So building strong relationships is one thing that, quite honestly, I did not lean into until I was in a spot where I really needed to. That looks like I'm out of a job, or I feel really stuck in my role and now I need to start those conversations. Start the conversations now. I always, remember it's the person that you end up in the elevator with, or the person that you do or don't cut off on your way into work, that can sometimes end up being, I worked so far away from this person. They end up being part of your network in the future, and you end up leveraging those relationships, and honestly the way that you show up every single day to get that conversation with them. So for me, building relationships with internally, building my network internally, my boss, other people in my network, women in sales groups, coaching groups, you just never know where those conversations are going to take you. and those individuals who maybe know who you are and sort of you leave a lasting impression on, like make sure that you're investing in that, taking action and taking the time to check in on that last person that said, hey, Allie, I'm looking for a role. Can you maybe make a referral? Hey, I don't have a referral for you now, but I'd love to take 5 minutes with you, 10 minutes with you, just kind of catch up. Tell me about what you're trying to do. Let me see if I can help you make a connection. That person can end up being someone that's in your network for a long time or even a really close friend, which I know has happened for me a number of times. Next is getting clear on your point of view and your goals. This is probably one of the top 2 things that I did for myself that helped me propel myself into the next step in my career. So early on, I'm in sales. I know there are a couple salespeople in the room. It's a grind. You start every month over again at 0. You build the pipeline. You do the KPIs. You make the calls. You make the emails. And I think it was easy for me to get really lost in do I want to be in sales? I like to be around people. I like to help people. But when I got asked by my CEO, my CSO, my manager, okay, what do you want to do? I sense this energy. I sense that you want to do something more. And I say, I don't know, I could be in sales, or, I could do coaching, or I could go to marketing, I don't know, talent acquisition. And while they were supportive of that, it never ended up really getting me to the next point because I wasn't clear on what I wanted, and it wasn't clear to the people around me what I wanted. So once I started saying, you know what, I'm going to commit. I know what my strengths are. I know where my opportunity areas are, but here's how I'm going to lean in and start showing up to my calls with my employees, my team, my manager, and saying, here's what I want. Here's how I'm going to get it. Here's what I'm doing to take that next step for myself. And it creates an opportunity for the people around you to say, I see that. I see her. I see her actions. I see her work every day, the way that she shows up. All of that's tracking and then helps them open up their eyes to opportunities for you. I, especially early on in my career, thought if I just made the most calls, sent the most emails, sold the most stuff, someone's gonna notice me. And unfortunately, that's just not the case. I went to President's Club and I still was reaching for, why am I not getting to the next step? And a big part of that, again, was just not having a clear point of view for myself and not having goals and expectations for myself where I was holding myself accountable to those things and not relying on the people around me to get me to that next step. So I really encourage you, if you haven't sat down and done the exercise of, here's what I want, even if it's to be exactly where I am, or if it's to grow in this specific skill set, or if it's to get the promotion or get the raise, make sure you know what that is, give yourself a timeline, and hold yourself accountable. Bring other people in with you. I have never been able to move forward in my career without help. And I think that's a really common misconception that we have, which is I have to go it alone, I have to do the most, be the most to everyone and everything, and then that's gonna get me there. When in reality, you really have to leverage the people around you and being reflective and being honest with yourself, having milestones for yourself and saying this either does or does not meet my expectations, and here's what I'm going to do. So take action and take ownership. And then lastly is, the idea of leveraging data and your results. One of the things that I have kind of as a running list for myself is my list of accomplishments. Like even if it's nothing else, even if I'm not putting that on my resume, even if I'm not talking to my direct manager about that all the time, it's a really, really helpful tool to log in on that Tuesday morning where Monday was really, really rough and you're sort of like, what? What am I doing? What have I even accomplished anything? And I think that's especially true when you are a really driven, ambitious person. It always feels like you're kind of not doing enough. Put those little things in there that you do. I took 15 minutes with this person and I got an email back saying, you really made a difference for me. Or I hit 150% of my number 6 months in a row, or whatever that means to you. It's not specific to sales. Don't forget to keep track because it will be such a fleeting memory. And when you're talking about either an internal conversation, external conversation, or just again, a quick reminder for yourself for how amazing that you are and what you have accomplished is such a great confidence boost. And then also sets you up when you do get caught in the elevator with your CEO or your CSO or whoever that is to say, what have you been working on lately? Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your team. You are so clear and able to articulate, here's what's important to me, here's my point of view, and here's what I'm doing. Here's the action that I'm taking to drive results for the business and bringing other people up with me. And then creating your own opportunities, developing a personal brand. I don't know if any of you have sat down and done the personal brand statement exercise, but I remember I asked someone in my group probably about a year ago, do you know what your personal brand is here? Like if you could imagine your boss and your boss's boss sitting in a room and your name came up, what do you think they'd say? They had no idea. I think it's a really, really common thing, and not being aware of how you are perceived and what your brand is, even if it's, Allie's a super high performer. Great. That's not about me, right? That's about what I'm doing, and making sure that, again, your clear point of view and what you want to be doing, your goals for yourself are all articulated, not only by yourself, but by the people that are your advocates, is super, super important. So sit down, do the brand development exercise, the brand statement, and just make sure that you know, here's how I'm being perceived today, here's where I want to be perceived and how I want to be perceived, and then be able to address either with yourself or with your leaders to say, here's how I want to bridge this gap. I'm really, really passionate about mentoring others in my group and being a force multiplier for the sales team. Okay, interesting. I see that you're a really strong performer personally, but I'm not really seeing you take that action. I'd love to either set you up for some opportunities or let me match you up with this person. But also just be able to be clear and say, I just didn't even realize that where I was trying to go, there's such a big disconnect with how I'm showing up every day that's preventing me from getting to the next step. Seeking leadership, mentorship, and growth opportunities. I just try and say yes more. Like, my least favorite thing, and Nick's gonna laugh, is public speaking. My direct manager, Brian, has encouraged me to lean into this and say, if this is what you want to be working on, if this is what you feel like is preventing you from getting to the next step, not only one, am I going to put you up to it, but two, I'm going to really support you and encourage you. I'm going to ask you to do that. And so I'm saying yes. And so while Nick messaged me and I could have said, I'm busy, I have a meeting for pipeline and dollars and stuff, I said yes. And so I really, really recommend to not shy away from the things that make you uncomfortable, because oftentimes those are where you can really start to shine and where you can really start to build your confidence and build your point of view. And your voice is really important. So whether it is a leadership or mentorship, whatever that is, if it makes you uncomfortable, it's probably a really, really good thing to start looking at a little bit more closely. I am a firm believer that growth happens in the uncomfortable, in the gray area, and it is never easy. It's a challenge every day to wake up and say, and I'm going to do this hard thing today. I'm going to do this thing that scares me today. But I really encourage you to think about, again, where you are today, where you want to be, and then taking those steps, not only for a skill development perspective, but take the opportunity. Go seek those opportunities out. Things will not probably just come to you. If you're really exceptional, maybe everything will magnetize towards you, but more often than not, you have to open up your mind and ask for that and go chase the opportunities to get you to the next step. And then last is investing in your growth. And I don't just mean, go get a LinkedIn certification and make a post and I'm certified in this now. What I'm talking about is investing in your communication skills, creating a network, creating partners at work and personally. I think for me, investing in my growth was a lot more about listening to other people. As someone who's really passionate about coaching, the biggest thing about coaching is not giving people advice, and I found myself doing that a lot, where someone would say, I don't know what to do. Okay, have you tried this? Have you tried that? No. Investing in my growth was actually being quieter and being more present, more aware, more of an active listener. And I've honestly gotten so much more out of my conversations, and selfishly, I get more out of coaching myself personally than I think I give to others, because I'm hearing someone's point of view, I'm hearing where they're stuck, and just asking some really simple questions to help them get to that point and say, okay, I think I got it. Okay, I have the next step, a next step, not solving their problems, not giving them all the answers, but simply listening. That, to me, is investing in my growth. So that's why I'm saying it doesn't have to be go get your MBA. Maybe go get your MBA. That's great. Go get the LinkedIn certification. But really, a lot of those things can just come down to how do you interact every single day? How do you communicate? And how do you bring people into your circle and advocate? And last is just in closing. Reflect and take action. You do have ownership. And I'm going to take the lens of a woman in sales. You are not subject, or I encourage you not to take the lens of, I am subject to what is happening around me. You do have an opportunity to stand in your power, stand in your voice. And honestly, the more that you bring people with you, along with you, advocate for yourself and others, that is a way to take action. Listening to others and help people reflect, that's taking action. Having a timeline for yourself, having a clear point of view on what your goals are and when you want to get there, that is taking action. And so while you're thinking about what the next step is for you, that doesn't mean, okay, great, in 15 years I want to be a CEO. It's what is the next step? That's all you ever have to do, because taking one step forward is what gets you to the next step, and honestly is so gratifying and just a really great opportunity for you to say again, I am awesome, I can do this, and just staying really focused. Bringing others with you, I feel like I've talked about this more than anything else during this. Nobody can be successful alone. As someone who has always kind of struggled with asking for help, because as a highly accountable person, being in sales, it's all about pipeline and revenue. It really is so much more about that. I'm looking at Luann right now. She's someone that I brought into my circle and have leaned on her a ton. And I think bringing others with you and allowing other people to bring you with them is really, really important, creating advocates around you and being an advocate yourself. And last is just go with confidence and intention. You're not always going to get everything right. What you think you want now may not be what you want. But the important thing is to take the next step, take action, and know that you do have control over your future and your path. And do that with intention. Have a clear mind as much as you can. Have reminders for yourself that you are incredible, you're making progress, and I don't think you can go wrong. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate the time.
Amazing. Thank you, Allie. And as before, we're taking questions from in-person and live streamers. I will start with mine. This might surprise you. I used to be a very shy individual, and I went along with a similar thing of kind of becoming a yes man might be a little vague, but taking these opportunities to challenge myself by doing something uncomfortable. So how would you say, for a shy person or somebody who might be a little more introverted, what is the first step to taking that leap to trying the uncomfortable things?
That's a good question. I think it's having a couple people that you trust, right? Like whether it's someone in your professional network or like a Nick. I trust Nick. He wouldn't put me up for something that I completely bomb, hopefully.
It's true.
And asking for those opportunities, not by posting out in the ether, hey, I'm looking for speaking opportunities, but really leaning in with the people who are invested in you and your growth to say, I really think you should go for this. I think you would be amazing at this. And so being shy might be surprising. I'm actually an introvert myself. I love my time alone, and I think part of just the steps of moving past that is moving past the fear, because you're probably the only person that's thinking that you can't do it or that you're scared of doing it, and chances are there's other people looking at you saying, that was amazing, and I'm really glad you took that opportunity.
And funny you say that, because everybody in the chat is giving you lots of love and saying that your words are amazing. So there you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
And we'll be taking more questions from the room if anybody has any they want to ask. Abby?
Hello.
Hi.
I'm wondering, what advice would you give to someone who is eager for growth, ready to take action, but works in an organization where there aren't a lot of opportunities for internal growth?
Yeah. This is a point I almost put into the presentation, I didn't, and I would say go where the opportunity is. I think aligning on what is it about your current organization. Are you aligned with the mission? Are you aligned with your values? Do you like what you do? Are you passionate about the product? That's probably the first exercise in making sure, am I aligned from a personal perspective for what's happening here? And the next step to take is really look at the landscape of the people in your space. Do I have a supportive boss? Do I feel like they know who I am? Have I been really clear with what my point of view and what my goals are? Because if you can't say yes to those things, it's going to be challenging, right? But if you do feel like you have those things and you're still missing, I'd probably start by having a really candid conversation with your leader and saying, here's what I'm looking for, here's what I want. Help me understand what the opportunity is for me. And, last case is go where the opportunity is. If you have set a goal for yourself in a timeline and have those milestones and you've improved and you've done better and you just realize from an organizational perspective there's not a lot of growth for you, I encourage you to start the networking and the conversations and starting to bring other people into your space to say, what else is out there, and help me just have some conversations to help me form my point of view on that.
Amazing answer. Anybody else in the chat or in the room? Feel free to ask your questions now. we have one more. If you could introduce yourself. And
Hi, my name is Maria, and I'm part of HR team. And I have a question for you. First of all, great presentation. I'm so admire your career. We have like a lot of expectations, especially as a woman outside of work, and how you build your life around work, which allowed you to be focused on your career.
Ooh, that's a hard one. I don't even know if I'm qualified to talk about that because I feel like I live, breathe work. I love work. Building my life around it. One thing that I think I needed to do a lot better was give more opportunities for myself to disconnect and relieve stress. Because for me, I think being in living up to and exceeding expectations at work is a lot of what has fueled me in the past. And, getting married recently and moving into my first home, I've had to take a really, really hard look at how I'm spending my time and how I'm showing up for the other people in my life who support me and making sure that I'm investing in them too. So I think your question is, how do you find balance? And I think first knowing what motivates you and acknowledging that and saying, I am a career-driven, career-motivated person personally. How can I also make sure that I take time, and here's when I do that? Or it's during the day. I'm someone who likes to break up my time, or I'm someone who likes to go for 6 hours, and then I say, I'm going to choose not to stay on until 8 tonight. I'm going to make myself, log off at 6, and I'm going to schedule something. I'm going to ask my friend to do something with me, my husband to do something with me. I'm going to put the leash on my dog. I have an alarm on my phone, and I'm going to take him out for a walk. Doesn't matter if it's rain, shine, I have to go do that. But to answer your question really, really honestly, I don't think that I've mastered that. And that's something that I think we all need to continuously work on and be really plugged into, because it's easy to lose track of. But don't lose sight of yourself and the other people in your life who love you and support you, because at the end of the day, that relationship with yourself and relationships with others are the ones that will be lasting, even past your career and your current role.
Amazing answer, as always. And we have one more question that we're going to take from the chat. This is from a Penguin Parlor. I like that name. You mentioned standing in your power, which is a really impactful statement. Do you have any advice on finding that power?
Spoiler alert, that's my husband, I think. So that's a trick question. How do I find that? For me, at the end of the day, what makes me feel really good is knowing that I helped one person. And so if I can look back on that day and say, I had that one call, everything else was just kind of a disaster today, but I had that one-on-one where that person left saying, okay, that was meaningful to me, that helped me more than any other conversation I've had today or this week. That is my power. So when I step back and say, what am I actually doing? What is my impact? Defining your impact. What is meaningful for you? And you can look back and say, here's what I did this week. Here's what I did today that actually made a difference, and remind yourself of that. But a lot of it is waking up every day and having that sense of self, and standing in who you are and showing up authentically. And I think when you show up authentically and you know who you are, and you feel like the people around you know who you are, and your leader knows who you are, that is true power. Being your authentic self, feeling like you can show up as yourself, and by being yourself, you're helping others, you're making an impact, whatever that impact means to you, is powerful. Yeah.
Amazing. And we also have a lot more love coming in from the chat, from a Christina J in particular. Really beautiful words. Thank you. And Joanna Rouse, lift as you climb. So those are nice words to end on.
100%.
But thank you, Allie. Amazing job. Everybody give it up for Allie.
Thank you. Thank you.
And everybody, that concludes our Women in Tech live stream. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we hope you have an amazing day. Thanks for coming.